different teams using point solutions, kind of in silos, systems not talking to each other. What we're doing with Commerce Suite is bringing all that together. We announced something really exciting mid last month, the One World Sync Commerce Suite. So that's a lot of what we're going to talk about today. And, we'll dig in, talk about just some of the observations that we at One World Sync have had across our customer base, as well as maybe some of the more macro trends that have driven some of the decisions around Commerce Suite and why we did it and why we're excited about it. And over the last, let's call it 4 or 5 months, we've observed both with what we would consider our emerging brand customers, as well as our, mid-sized to larger customers, that in a lot of cases, these companies are still operating in silos, right? And when we think of silos, we think of not only just people, departments, but also data. So you've got different sets of content and different sets of data scattered around within these organizations. And that's a lot of what we've observed and why we brought Commerce Suite to market. We'll talk a lot more about that. But I know you have a lot of conversations on a regular basis with brands of all sizes.
Sure. Yeah. One of the biggest things that we have recognized, through conversations with brands is just the inefficiencies that they experience because the folks that are trying to operate these different areas of content in some cases don't even know each other exist, and worst case, but best case, they might know it exists, but they're just not connected into the use of a singular set of tools that can help them get where they need to go, all from within one platform. So the end result of that is just immense inefficiency because right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing, makes it really hard to strategize, really hard to be efficient about how you get your content out into the marketplace to do the job that it's supposed to do.
When you think of the sales department, marketing department, e-com department, in a lot of cases, what we've seen at least is that these teams are kind of going out individually and in silos like we talked about and finding, in many cases, point solutions to solve what they believe is a very specific need for their department, whereas they may not be even aware that they can do a lot of this within a single platform. So we'll talk more about that. So those are some of the observations within our customer base. But when you think of some of the, let's call it macro trends that are driving what I would consider the acceleration of the omni-channel shopping experience, we've been talking about omni-channel for a while, but I think that with something like retail media, for example, which I know you are well-versed and have a lot of conversations about, how that ties into some of the decisions that our brand side customers are having to think about or making already.
Where retail media really starts to intersect with the users of our platform is that you've got folks within these organizations that are making decisions about how they're going to deploy their retail media dollars, right? What platforms, what products are they going to apply it to? And so forth. And nothing particularly wrong with that, right? So devising that strategy. But what we've begun to realize and what our customers have begun to realize is that there's an interdependency between deploying retail media dollars and getting the most out of that investment. And so that, again, where that touches our platform is that when you're using retail media to drive a consumer to your product on website XYZ, what they see when they get there should be as compelling, educational for that consumer to try to get them to convert on that product as it possibly can be, right? So if you're not doing the best job with your content, you're unknowingly, in some cases, impacting the ultimate result that you're getting out of your retail media investment.
So if let's say I'm in the marketing department, marketing / e-com or kind of a mix of the two, I'm investing heavily into retail media because I want my brand to show up in front of, consumers that are searching, whether it's within a category or for a specific product. The consumer sees that advertisement, clicks the link and goes to a product detail page for that product. And then they're either compelled to take the next step or to click, or they're not.
Yeah, essentially, you've spent some money to get the consumer there, right? So why would you not also make an investment in making sure that you can convert that consumer once they land? And then there's a kind of a secondary tangent of it. When you think about these teams operating and collaborating within a single platform and thus getting visibility to what other teams are doing, what that leads to is a situation where you may uncover the fact that I literally shouldn't be spending money on a particular project or product, because if I took some steps using some of the tools within the Commerce Suite, I could actually improve organic performance in terms of search and browse for that product, meaning consumers can find it easier and I convert them, organically versus having to pay to get them there through retail media.
We just got back from an event in Nashville, a lot of conversations around 2D barcode.
Yeah, undoubtedly one of the biggest conversations, within our customer base, both on the retail side and the brand side. And the net of it is the work that your team does tells us that consumers are constantly looking at their phone, trying to find more information about a product that maybe they're looking at in store, holding in their hand, and they want to see things like ratings and reviews, that kind of stuff. The 2D barcode is just the perfect vehicle for that to make it easy. Right. So to use that 2D barcode as an extension of the product, and then make sure that what the consumer sees is being driven dynamically by the same information that they would see in another digital property, goes a long way toward consumer trust, and then just getting the most out of the investment that you're making in all types of content, whether it's user generated or something that you as a brand are in control with. It really should be consistent.
Yeah, and there's a lot of conversation around 2027 and this sunrise of 2D barcode, and what we're encouraging our customers to do is really think, how do they get out in front of that, right?
Yeah, just the ability to better inform the consumer, give them information that they're going to look for anyway if they decide to buy your product. So just make that conversion decision a little bit easier by just giving everything that they're going to look for. Now, you mentioned, getting out in front of this, and that's what we're starting to see the community like really wake up to it. It used to be a conversation around, is this really going to happen? Yes or no? And we would say yes. I think when you see one of the biggest e-tailers on the planet starting to survey brands about their readiness for this, it tells you this is going to happen, right? So it's going to happen. In terms of getting out in front of it, we have made it as easy as possible for our brands to get out in front of it, to the degree that they're absolutely complicit with the global standards that are going to drive this thing working at both the point of sale and to drive the consumer experience. Something that we're ready to talk to our customers about all the time is just how easy this really is and what we've done to make it so.
Yeah, that's exactly this, right? As the marketing leader, it pains me sometimes to have conversations with customers where they go, "Oh, I didn't know One World Sync can do this," right? And so we can do it, and we can do all of it. And really, what that entails, when we think about the consumer experiences that we just talked about, what happens when you scan the 2D barcode, what's going on in store versus online. There's a lot of technology that needs to sit behind all that, right? Different teams using point solutions, kind of in silos, systems not talking to each other. What we're doing with Commerce Suite is bringing all that together in one place so that sales, marketing, e-commerce, and master data can get just a ton of value out of what they're paying for in their current subscription today. And then there's going to be additional capabilities coming very soon, things like ratings and reviews that they'll have access to as well.
Yeah, when you think of what's exciting, different things excite different people depending on, which part of the organization you're dealing with. The net of it is there's a lot of the stuff that you see on the screen, when you think of rich content, we just talked about the 2D barcode experience for sales. We talk about things like digital catalogs that give salespeople visibility to content that they need to hold sales conversations. We talk about store level data that's going to help that salesperson understand, is their account doing as well or performing as well as they could be? And then in the master data side, something we've been involved in for so many years, the foundational stuff like item setup, like all of that stuff probably already happening in a lot of these organizations. Problem with it is it's happening in silos, which we're working to remove. But one of the net side effects of these things working in silos is just the cost, right? Everybody using independent tools, different platforms. Some of them, they're paying probably a lot more than they probably should be. So to bring all of this together, you're going to be able to achieve the same stuff with a consistent set of tools, give visibility across your teams, and then ultimately, we know it. We can save organizations a ton of money just by bringing this all together, harmonizing these tools under a single subscription versus these one-off investments that teams are making today.
The other thing I'd call out too is when you think about the distribution channels of getting content to retailers or even on your own direct-to-consumer sites where there's capabilities that you can embed into your D2C site, that's not an additional cost. Whereas if you think of other players in the market, that is an additional cost. It's an additional cost to add items. It's additional cost to add additional retailers or users. That's not the case with One World Sync, and it's just part of Commerce Suite. So a lot of excitement around this, and really excited to bring more customers onto it.
Yeah, that's it, man. It's like, everybody's getting this stuff done one way or another. We're going to give you an easier way to do it. Again, all within one platform. We just keep coming back to it. Is so many of the things that are built into our platform that allow you to explore these use cases that historically you just haven't even touched. You've just done it a better way and accepted that. It's just ways to expose this content in the interest of consistency on things like your own digital property. No cost for that. Expose it to your sales guys. No cost for that. Expose it to folks that aren't on the global network. No cost for that. It's just the ability that organizations have to save themselves money and do this stuff way more cost efficiently is just one of the biggest outcomes of using Commerce Suite.